A shaman saw Lady Hio's belly and froze immediately. With a single glance, she recognized that the child Lady Hio carried would become the moon of Joseon. But before she could congratulate her, the shaman's expression grew grave. She also saw that although the unborn girl bore the fate of a future queen, this destiny would bring grave danger, one that could cost her life. Because Lady Hio had just saved her, the shaman stopped her before she left and vowed that even at the cost of her own life, she would protect the child. Unfortunately, the shaman was soon caught in the political struggle at court and arrested. Before her execution, she entrusted her friend, another shaman, with the task of protecting Lady Hio's unborn child. She told her friend that from the girl's fate, she foresaw that Joseon would one day have 2 suns and 2 moons. When asked for the girl's name, she admitted she did not know. As the soldiers urged them apart, the 2 women were forced to say their final goodbye. The shaman was sentenced to death by dismemberment. At the very moment she died, the moon of Joseon was born. Lady Hio named her daughter Hio Yunwoo. 13 years later, the shaman's friend had become a court shaman in charge of rituals, and Yunwoo had grown into a graceful young lady. On the day of her brother Hio Yeom's top-ranking exam celebration, Yunwoo accompanied her mother to the palace. A butterfly caught her attention, and she followed it deep into the palace grounds, not noticing the crown prince secretly climbing over a wall to escape. The crown prince stared at Yunwoo, unable to look away. When Yunwoo turned her head, their eyes met, and in his surprise, he slipped from the wall and tumbled down, knocking Yunwoo over. Embarrassed, they both stood up quickly. The crown prince sternly questioned why she was in the palace, while Yunwoo, unaware of his identity, suspected he might be a thief. Just then, the prince's guards arrived in search of him, and he grabbed Yunwoo's hand. The 2 ran through the palace corridors until they finally shook off the guards. Seeing how he fled from palace soldiers, Yunwoo became even more convinced he was a thief. Helpless, the prince claimed he was only looking for his older brother, who had been cast out by their father and forced to become a palace guard. Hearing this, Yunwoo felt sympathy and boldly criticized the strict social hierarchy of Joseon right in front of him. After leaving the palace, the crown prince secretly sent Yunwoo a handkerchief. At home, she opened it and saw a cryptic line: "A circle is drawn, a square is written." After pondering its meaning, she went outside and drew shapes in the dirt until she suddenly realized the riddle referred to the sun: round when drawn, square when written. The little sun. Was that not the crown prince? Remembering her bold criticisms earlier that day, she collapsed to the ground in regret. But in truth, the crown prince was not offended. Rather, he was captivated by Yunwoo's intelligence. He could not forget her, nor could his estranged older brother Yang Myung, who had known Yunwoo even earlier, and who had fallen for her long before. A few days later, because of the crown prince's mischievous behavior, all his tutors had quit. The king then appointed the newly ranked scholar Hio Yeom, Yunwoo's brother, as the prince's new tutor. Yeom was a man whose brilliance shone wherever he went. Even the young princess felt as if she experienced love at first sight when she saw him. Though it was impossible to blame her, Yeom's handsomeness drew admiring gazes from classmates, palace maids, and even strangers in the street. On his first day teaching the prince, a palace maid fainted just from seeing Yeom walk through the gate. The crown prince, seeing such a young and handsome tutor, was unimpressed and questioned what right Yeom had to teach him. During the first lesson, he deliberately embarrassed Yeom. When Yunwoo saw her brother troubled, she immediately guessed the crown prince was teasing him and gave him advice. The next day, when Yeom arrived to teach, the crown prince ignored him and played by himself. When Yeom announced the end of the lesson and prepared to leave, the prince sprung his trap, mocking Yeom for teaching nothing at all and threatening to ask the king to dismiss him. Hearing this, Yeom calmly responded that he would indeed resign and never return. Suddenly alarmed, the crown prince asked a riddle: what can make the whole world turn instantly bright or instantly dark? Yeom began to leave, saying the answer would be revealed in the next lesson, and that the prince should not think too simply. This unsettled the crown prince, who searched through books for the answer. Princess Minhwa peeked in curiously as servants carried stacks of books into his room. After hearing the riddle, she immediately guessed eyelids. The crown prince rejected the answer as too shallow. On the third day, the crown prince proudly presented his own answer: governance. When a ruler's politics are benevolent, the people live in brightness. When the times are harsh, all falls into darkness. But Yom calmly told him that the correct answer was islets. The crown prince erupted in anger, accusing him of mockery. Yom answered gently, "Is an answer incorrect simply because it is not profound? Must every answer be found in a book? Everything in the world can be a question, and everything in the world can also be an answer. The greatest mistakes in learning are arrogance and prejudice." Ashamed yet enlightened, the crown prince realized Yom was the teacher he needed and knelt to formally acknowledge him as master. Outside, the king overheard everything and rejoiced. This loyal and virtuous scholar would be the perfect guide for the prince amid the growing political factions. News of the prince accepting Yom as his teacher soon reached Princess Minhwa, who grew even more curious. Princess Minhwa wondered what kind of person could be talented enough to impress her proud older brother, the crown prince. Curious, she sneaked out to see for herself. When the crown prince and Hyo Yom left the study for their meal, she caught sight of Yom, and from that moment, she could never forget him. She ran to the king, begging to study alongside the crown prince, but her request was denied. Taking advantage of the situation, Minister Yoon Dae-hyung of the powerful Yoon faction suggested that it was time to choose the princess a companion. When the king asked if he had someone in mind, the Minister of Rights immediately recommended Yoon Bo-kyung, Yoon Dae-hyung's daughter. It was obvious the Yoon family had long plotted to send Bo-kyung into the palace, hoping she would one day become crown princess. The king, fully aware of their intentions, outwardly approved the recommendation, but then used the moment to add another candidate, Hyo Yeon-woo, daughter of Minister Hyo, a respected scholar and political rival of the Yoon faction. This decision sent a clear warning. Both Yoon Dae-hyung and the Dowager Queen immediately sensed the king intended to restrain their growing influence. Knowing they had to act quickly, they doubled their efforts to push Bo-kyung toward the position of crown princess. When Yeon-woo stepped out of her palanquin at the palace gate, the court shamans secretly observing from nearby widened her eyes. Yeon-woo radiated the light of the moon of Joseon. A moment later, Bo-kyung arrived, and the shaman saw a dark aura surrounding her as if trying to eclipse the moon. She remembered her friend's prophecy from 13 years earlier: Joseon will have 2 moons. And now both were before her. The two girls entered the palace together and knelt before the Dowager Queen. Hidden behind a screen, the court shaman watched. The Dowager Queen had arranged this meeting specifically to determine which girl possessed the destiny of a queen. She learned that Yeon-woo did indeed have the potential to become queen, but her fate also carried mortal danger. Bo-kyung, on the other hand, lacked the aura of a queen yet could safely remain in the royal court as crown princess. After the meeting, the Dowager Queen summoned the shaman, who confirmed that Bo-kyung was destined to enter the palace. The Yoon family were the Dowager Queen's maternal relatives, and together with the Minister of Rights, they used the pretext of selecting a companion for the princess to send Bo-kyung into the palace to gain the crown prince's attention, hoping to secure the position of crown princess. Leaving the Dowager Queen's quarters, the shaman's expression turned grave. 13 years earlier, her dying friend had entrusted her with protecting the moon of Joseon. But Yeon-woo was clearly no match for Bo-kyung and the powerful factions behind her. While waiting for Princess Minhwa, the two girls attempted to befriend each other. Soon, their days as the princess's companions officially began. Because Princess Minhwa liked Yom, and Yeon-woo was Yom's younger sister, she naturally favored Yeon-woo, leaving Bo-kyung neglected. Resentment quietly took root. One day in the palace, the girls encountered the king, who shared a historical anecdote and asked them to explain its meaning. Bo-kyung, trained strictly in womanly virtues rather than scholarly study, could not answer. Yeon-woo explained that it referred to the Han Dynasty minister Kong Gwang and that in this context, the king likely meant that whatever one sees or hears in the palace must never be spread outside. Pleased, the king nodded approvingly, already beginning to accept Yeon-woo as his future daughter-in-law. Seeing this, Bo-kyung burned with frustration, and Yoon Dae-hyung noticed everything. At home, he summoned his daughter and scolded her for failing to make progress. Bokyung complained that Yunwoo held deep connections in the palace. The princess liked her because of Yeom, and another young royal named Lee Won had even written her a letter. Shocked, Yoon Dae-hyung asked again for the sender's name. Bokyung confirmed it, Lee Won. She had secretly read the letter. Only then did Yoon Dae-hyung and the Dowager Queen realize that Yunwoo already knew the crown prince, and that their feelings for each other may have begun. They had to accelerate their plan before the position of crown princess slipped away. Meanwhile, the crown prince asked a eunuch to deliver a letter to Yunwoo, but it was mistakenly given to Bokyung. When Bokyung went to the Eastern Palace with the letter, the crown prince turned, only to find her instead of Yunwoo. His face paled, and after a hurried apology he fled. Bokyung, however, used the moment to her advantage, deliberately allowing Princess Minhwa to see her leaving the Eastern Palace. As she intended, rumors quickly spread. Hearing the gossip, the king summoned the crown prince. Though the prince explained the misunderstanding, the king scolded him harshly. Affection and carelessness could endanger Yunwoo, turning her into a pawn in the political struggle. The crown prince was shaken, but he could not give up his feelings for her. Realizing that new troubles would keep arising until a crown princess was chosen, the king decided it was time to begin the selection process. At court a few days later, he announced a national decree. All girls aged 12 to 16 were forbidden from marrying, and their names would be submitted for royal selection. That night, a grand celebration was held in the palace. During a ritual, the court shaman had a vision, her spirit appearing among the festivities. She urgently warned Yunwoo to flee and avoid the selection. In a flash, the vision vanished. Yunwoo searched for the shaman, but instead, a masked man appeared and dragged her away. Removing his mask, the man revealed himself as the crown prince. He confessed his true feelings to Yunwoo, dissolving their earlier misunderstandings. Moved, Yunwoo declared that she would not run, she would face the selection. Nearby, Yang Myung, who loved Yunwoo, and Bokyung, who desired the crown prince, watched in painful silence. The struggle for the position of crown princess had become even more unpredictable. For the first time in his life, Prince Yang Myung asked the king for a favor, to grant him a wife, and he specifically named Hyo Yunwoo. The king was stunned. Earlier that day, the crown prince had also come requesting Yunwoo. The king reminded him that matters of succession were not determined by personal wishes. The selection process was governed by strict protocol, and final authority rested with the Dowager Queen, not with the crown prince. But the prince knew that the Dowager Queen would manipulate the process, pushing Bokyung forward. Rumors were already spreading through the palace that Bokyung would soon become crown princess. Faced with this, the crown prince struck a deal with his father. He first needed to change the rules of the selection. The king agreed to conduct a fair and impartial selection for the crown princess. He wanted to see how the candidates would handle the Grand Queen Dowager's political pressure, so he accepted the crown prince's proposal. At this moment, Prince Yang Myung also came to ask for a marriage decree, but the king refused him. Heartbroken, Yang Myung left the palace. The king was already overwhelmed that both his sons were in love with the same girl. Unexpectedly, as soon as he stepped out, Princess Minhwa came requesting a marriage decree as well. Acting as though she were already an adult, Minhwa said she wished to marry. The man she had chosen was none other than Hyo Yeom, Hyo Yunwoo's older brother. The king refused immediately. He had appointed Hyo Yeom as a scholar specifically to assist the future crown prince and to counterbalance the influence of the Yoon clan. If Yeom became a royal son-in-law, court rules forbade him from expressing any political views. Princess Minhwa didn't understand these reasons and began to cry and make a scene, making the king's headache even worse. The Hyo family was also in distress. Hyo Yeom begged his sister, Yunwoo, to withdraw from the selection. Yoon Bokyung had already entered the palace as a candidate. If Yunwoo continued and ultimately lost in the final round, she would be forbidden from marrying anyone else and would face a lonely life. But Yunwoo refused to give up the crown prince. At the same time, Crown Prince Lee Won also refused to let go of Yunwoo. He secretly summoned the chief scholar and criticized him for failing to restrain the Yoon clan. The chief scholar immediately understood the crown prince was speaking about the crown princess selection. One instructed him to unite the scholars and submit a memorial pointing out that the selection was being manipulated by the Yun family. King Songjo read the memorial and realized his son had finally matured. Using public opinion to suppress the Yun clan was a brilliant political move. The king approved the memorial publicly, announcing during court that the crown princess selection would break old conventions. He himself would oversee it to guarantee fairness. The Grand Queen Dowager, furious, demanded the king withdraw his decision. Though the king spoke politely, his heart was firm. He had long been disgusted by the Yun family's domination of the court. The dowager brought up the Yun clan's past military achievements in helping suppress the rebellion 13 years ago. Hearing this, the king became angry, for that incident had been orchestrated entirely by the Yun family for their own gain and had nearly cost innocent lives, including his. Now that the truth was known, the king refused to let her weaponize that history again. He questioned her. Was all of this truly for the sake of the throne, or for your own clan? The dowager fell silent. The king declared the selection would proceed fairly and told her not to create more trouble. Enraged, the Grand Queen Dowager returned to her chambers and vowed that she would not allow herself to lose this battle for the future crown princess. Inside the palace, tensions rose, and outside it was no easier. The mother was trying to guide Yunwoo's behavior. But as she did, tears welled in her eyes. Everyone knew the path ahead might be harsh and regretful, so why was her daughter so stubborn? She embraced Yunwoo tightly. Yunwoo went to the courtyard and gazed at the moon. Yang Myungjun walked up to her. He had come to say goodbye, though he could not bear to see the woman he loved lose in the selection process and face a lonely life. He told Yunwoo that, if she wished, they could live in obscurity together, far from their royal duties. No princehood, no political obligations, just her. But Yunwoo took it as a joke, and Yang Myungjun laughed through tears, admitting it was indeed a joke. After giving her his blessings, he left to wander the world alone. The crown princess selection began as scheduled. After the first 2 rounds, only 3 girls remained. The king personally asked them, if you were to convert the value of the crown princess into money, how much would it be? The first girl had no concept of money and rattled off millions without thought. The second girl replied more carefully, saying that the king's virtue is as high as the mountains and as vast as the seas, and only when something as grand appears can it be measured in gold. This answer was nearly perfect, and both the king and Grand Royal Queen smiled. The third girl's answer shocked the court officials, including the king and Grand Royal Queen. She said that for the common people, even 1,000 or 2,000 coins seem vast, and the king is their sky. The king embodies these coins in reality. He is the father of the people. This answer captured the king's heart, and So Yun won the selection. Yet Grand Royal Queen was furious. So Yun was not her person, and she intended to eliminate her. At night, Grand Royal Queen summoned the court sorcerer. Before a crown princess's wedding, she was protected by the king, making assassination or poisoning impossible. But the queen ordered the sorcerer to eliminate So Yun. The sorcerer hesitated, recalling she had been entrusted with protecting her. Yet Grand Royal Queen threatened her with consequences, leaving the sorcerer no choice but to comply. A few nights later, Grand Royal Queen personally came to the sorcerer's residence, bringing items belonging to Yunwoo. The sorcerer began a dark ritual, and black smoke surged through the roads, flying into Yunwoo's house. It gripped her like a demon. She tried to crawl to the door but ultimately collapsed, and the black smoke vanished. Grand Royal Queen asked if the ritual was complete, and the sorcerer confirmed that So Yun would fall gravely ill and die. The queen then revealed a terrified princess, who had been coerced into the ritual as a sacrifice in exchange for a personal favor. Days later, the court debated Yunwoo's fate. The royal physician insisted that Yunwoo might not be able to inherit the dragon lineage, urging the appointment of a new crown princess. Though the king was reluctant, the officials prevailed, and So Yun was expelled from the palace. The crown prince cried out in protest but was blocked by the guards. He watched helplessly as the woman he loved was sacrificed in political struggles, while Grand Royal Queen observed from afar, having planned everything with the officials to keep the crown prince under control. Grand Royal Queen called the crown prince and told her to obey the natural order. When the crown prince asked what that meant, the queen explained that So-yun was meant to live an ordinary, happy life. That was the natural order. By changing the selection process, the crown prince had disrupted this order, which was why So-yun was ill. She warned that the entire So family could face ruin if the illness was concealed. She demanded the crown prince become obedient, but of course, the crown prince would not relent. The So family sought every doctor to cure Yunwoo, but none could diagnose her mysterious illness, which worsened daily. Mr. So was distraught. One day, a court official arrived claiming she could diagnose Yunwoo. Desperate, Mr. So allowed her to try. The official determined it was a divine illness, incurable by medicine, and that suffering would intensify unless the divine artifact causing it was dispelled. The official suggested a dark ritual to end Yunwoo's life and dispel the artifact. Mr. So could not choose. Meanwhile, under the influence of powerful officials, the court forced the king to appoint a new crown princess. The crown prince wanted to appeal, but palace officials warned him it would be futile and could give the officials leverage. Enraged at his inability to protect Yunwoo, he secretly sneaked to Yunwoo's chamber that night, crying and apologizing, giving her a token to protect her. Yunwoo also cried and bid farewell. The next day, Yunwoo coughed up blood, her condition worsening. Unable to bear her suffering, Mr. So made a heartbreaking decision. Yunwoo drank the poison her father had prepared. In her final moments, she comforted him, telling him not to grieve too much, as he called her name desperately, overwhelmed with sorrow. Yunwoo left, but no one expected that for her, this was not the end, it was a new beginning. After her family buried her, that very night, the court sorcerer came with her attendants. They dug into her grave, shaking the coffin. Somehow, this awakened Yunwoo. Disoriented and gasping for the thinning air, at that moment, someone approached. The sorcerer turned and saw Yunwoo's maid, Snow, and it was decided that she would finally bring Yunwoo back to the living world. But when Yunwoo awoke the next day, she had no memory of who she was and did not recognize her maid Snow. Her amnesia conveniently spared the sorcerer further trouble. She told Yunwoo that she had found her in the streets and, because she had been gravely ill, she had used a ritual that caused her memory loss. From then on, Yunwoo would live with her as a shaman, and she gave her the name Wolyeo. The sorcerer took command of Yunwoo's affairs and left the capital, heading south with her. Meanwhile, the crown prince, still deeply in love with Yunwoo, was unaware of her survival, consumed with thoughts of her. Yang Myungjun, who also loved Yunwoo, found the crown prince and confronted him about his inaction. You say you love Yunwoo so deeply, but she was driven out like a criminal. When she suffered, what did you do? When she was buried in the cold earth, what did you do? The crown prince's helplessness gnawed at him. Outside the palace, the new crown princess quickly secured her position through the manipulations of powerful officials. On the wedding day, gentle rain fell from the sky. The crown prince reached out but could not forget Yunwoo. 8 years passed. The crown prince had inherited the throne, yet the court was still dominated by powerful factions. The king had long avoided aligning with the officials, causing instability in governance. As long as the positions of power remained uncertain, the officials, together with the Grand Royal Queen, conspired to keep the king away from political affairs. Though the king initially resisted, he was eventually pressured by the queen and the Grand Royal Queen. Kneeling at the palace gates, the crown prince pleaded for understanding. The king reluctantly complied. The crown princess, now firmly in her place, stood silently in the palace, telling herself that no matter how much the king loved Yunwoo, Yunwoo was gone. She believed this event might make the king reconsider, but she could not have imagined that, after 8 years, the one she thought dead was about to return. Meanwhile, the court sorcerer, in the middle of her ritual, received an unexpected message. She realized that the flow of celestial energy was changing and that she must meet someone immediately. Leaving Yunwoo and Wolyeo behind, she hurried away. Freed from her control, Yunwoo and Wolyeo did not rush to the mountains but instead wandered through the city. At the same time, the king, forced by the Grand Royal Queen and the Grand Queen Dowager to recuperate outside the palace, arrived in the city. Citizens lined up to see him as he passed, offering their respect and curiosity. Yunwoo and Wolyeo joined the crowd. When local guards blocked the way, preventing ordinary citizens from approaching. Yunwoo could not stand by and confronted them. Learning that she was a commoner, the guards became even more arrogant, and Yunwoo, undeterred, prepared to face them with determination. The woman glanced at the security guard and said, "Your wife must have run off with someone, right?" The security guard was confused. "How do you know?" The woman replied, "Because you hit your wife." The security guard was even more perplexed. The woman continued, "Also, your health isn't good. You hardly ever eat properly and drink too much. If you keep this up, you won't last a year." It was obvious that the woman had hit the mark. The security guard was furious, but someone nearby warned, "That's a shaman." The security guard sighed and let them pass. Thus, the two of them gained the chance to see the king up close. Just as she spoke, the king appeared. Everyone immediately knelt. A butterfly caught Wulrai's attention, and she followed it, looking up to see the king. She froze, a sense of déjà vu washing over her, and tears began to flow unconsciously. Seal tried to make her kneel, but Wulrai wouldn't move. Seal had no choice but to drag her away. Seeing someone fleeing, the security guard chased after them. Wulrai's mind flashed with vague memories. The two hid in a corner and watched the king as he attempted to understand the people, yet he was being followed by aides of Minister Yang Daehyung. To shake off his tail, the king ran with his bodyguards into the mountains. As night fell, a thick fog rose. The king became lost, and in the distance, he glimpsed a young Yunwoo, but on closer inspection, it wasn't her. Wulrai invited them into a house, yet the king could not take his eyes off her. She was too much like Yunwoo, the same speech, gestures, and mannerisms. The king followed her inside, captivated. Wulrai warned the guards, "How can His Majesty drink first? What if it's poisoned?" At that moment, the king pulled Wulrai close, demanding to know how she knew his identity. He hoped she would claim to be Yunwoo, but she explained it was because she had seen him earlier that day. The king was disappointed. As the fog cleared and moonlight twisted away, he returned home empty-handed. A few days later, the king returned to the capital. He discovered that Hu Pan had seized many soldiers under the pretense of inspecting the treasure hall, hiding some for his own purposes. The king ordered the full list and all accounts to be reported immediately. He intended to investigate personally. Hu Pan, working for Yang Daehyung, could not allow this. That night, Yang Daehyung bribed the court shaman of Shinsadang with the promise of leadership, compelling her to curse the king, causing him to fall ill. The king indeed became sick, and even the royal physicians could not find the cause. The Grand Queen Dowager reported this to the Queen Mother, who did not know that Yang Daehyung was behind it. She decided that if human efforts failed, they would rely on divine power. After the previous misadventure in the mountains, Wulrai was no longer there, and Gukwu was sought elsewhere. Unfortunately, Yang Daehyung's men took Wulrai hostage during the summoning. On the way, Wulrai managed to escape but encountered Yang Myung. He recognized her as Yunwoo, but she had no memory. Just then, pursuers arrived. Yang Myung told her to run, but Wulrai was captured anyway, and Yang Myung was injured. Wulrai was taken to Shinsadang. The Queen Mother advised that, for now, Wulrai should serve as the king's shaman. Fearing the king's objection, the Queen Mother ordered sedatives to be placed in his tea. That night, Wulrai was brought to the king's bedchamber. One of the guards noticed her, realizing she was the same shaman who had helped them in the mountains. She touched the arrow in her hand and looked at the sleeping king, calling Yunwoo's name, tears sliding down her face. The next morning, the king's condition had improved significantly. He vaguely sensed someone had been with him the previous night and asked the attendants. They lied, saying it was a holy guardian. During the morning audience, Hu Pan presented a disguised warrior master. Naturally, the king discovered nothing, but suspicion gnawed at him. When the king arrived at Shinsadang to retrieve Wulrai, he encountered the Queen Mother, who forbade her departure, insisting the shaman ritual must continue. To protect Wulrai, Gukwu had no choice but to comply. Wulrai explained she only wanted to protect the king, and Gukwu acknowledged that such fated ties could not be altered. Yet before their destiny could be fulfilled, Wulrai had to walk her path alone. That night, the king suddenly awoke to find a woman beside him. A knight pinned her down while he summoned the attendants and began questioning her. She said she was merely a shaman performing protective rituals for the king. But the king, seeing her resemblance to his deceased love Yunwoo, suspected her of being sent to deceive him. Enraged, he ordered her imprisoned. Lower officials quickly accused her of a major crime, planning to brand her forehead and exile her. The king sent his men to investigate her background. It was confirmed that she was indeed registered as a shaman named Wulrai, never involved in the ritual conspiracy, and unaware of the ceremonial plots. The king breathed a sigh of relief and halted her execution at the last moment. Yet Wulrai's face had already been imprinted in his heart. She resembled Yunwoo too closely. Wulrai was soon reinstated as the king's shaman. The queen, having endured 8 years of being ignored by the king, now watched in frustration as he showed tender affection toward Wulrai. Every day, Wulrai watched the king sleep, and because of her, the king was often reminded of Yunwoo. One day, the attendants delivered a letter found on Wulrai. The king was astonished to find its contents mirrored the same messages that Yunwoo had left him years ago. When he questioned Wulrai about her lineage, she admitted she had lost her memory as a child and did not know her origins. Obsessed, the king pressed her for answers, but she insisted, "Although I look like her, I am not the person you are searching for." The king could not let go. He found records from 8 years ago regarding Yunwoo's death, noting only that she had died of illness, yet the circumstances seemed suspicious. If she had fallen ill before the selection, her family would not have been harmed. If after, she would not have been expelled from the palace. Determined, the king resolved to investigate the case thoroughly. He sought out the late king's personal attendants, but they refused to meet him. On the streets, he happened upon Wulrai being harassed, and he helped her escape. They stumbled into a theater performance, where the king criticized it as nonsense. Wulrai found it delightful, and the king thought that if Yunwoo were alive, she would enjoy such plays just as much. At that moment, Yang Myung, who had been searching for Wulrai, passed by and saw the king and Wulrai exchanging glances. His eyes filled with tears, and he turned away. From a nearby corner, Wulrai's former guardian, Yun Seon, appeared, disappointed to see that she had become close to the king. Yang Myung reflected that 8 years ago he had been willing to give up everything for Yunwoo, yet now, for Wulrai, his heart's echo of her, he still had no chance. That night, Yang Myung visited Wulrai, speaking words she could not fully understand, then left quietly, believing that true love means allowing her to make her own choices.